The Princess is directed by Levon Kiet and stars Joey King, Dominic Cooper, and Olga Kurylenko. When a strong-willed princess refuses to wed a cruel psychopath, she must use all of her strength, wit, and skill to save herself, her family, and her kingdom. So to be honest, I never really had any plans to either see or watch this movie, mainly because I never even heard of it. But the only reason that I did see and review this movie is because, well, it's the 4th of July, everyone's off, and I was just on streaming services, mainly on Hulu, saw this was new and said, you know what, meh, I'll watch it. I had no anticipation, I had never seen the trailers, I didn't even know the reviews for this movie, whether they were positive or negative. All I knew is that it was on Hulu for free, so why not watch it? And to be honest, it did surprise me in a few areas. In other areas, it did disappoint me, but for the most part, I actually did sort of have fun with this movie. For the most part, it's a bit confusing. If there is one reason to see this movie, it is because of the action. The action in this movie is fantastic. The cinematography is so smooth and quick and dynamic, while the choreography is so tight and brutal. It combines together to create some awesome action sequences. And thankfully for the movie, about 50% of it is the action sequences, which are a ton of fun. I not only have to give props to the cinematographer and the choreographers of this movie, but I also have to give props to the actors themselves. From what I could tell watching it, most of it is in camera and most of it is done by the actors. I couldn't really see a whole lot of obvious stunt doubling going on, and for the most part, all I could see were the actors' faces doing all of this incredible stunt work. The action is so fun and awesome, and it makes up so much of this movie. I do have the feeling that the entire film in and of itself was pretty much just an experiment to see how well the cinematographer, the director, the stunt choreographers, all of them combined, how well they could make action sequences. And if that's the case, then they succeeded in making some really great action sequences. The rest of the movie is where I feel most of their attention didn't lie. Not that the rest of the movie was awful, it just doesn't feel like as much focus was put into all of the other elements of this film than was put into the action sequences. First of all, you have the characters. I didn't care about any of them. The princess, her mentor, her family, even the villains of this movie, I did not care a single bit about. Each one of them are so bland and so boring, and each one of them, especially the villains, are trying their hardest to overact so much so that they can get a memorable performance out of this role. But the role that they're stuck in is written so horribly bland. No one is written with personality, so no actor is a standout, whether it's from a good or bad perspective. They're pretty much just stuck in limbo. And just the whole structure of this story, especially from an editing perspective, is just so weird. It's so disjointed, and most of its development relies on flashbacks to earlier events that were not focused on in the film. And because they're such short flashbacks and there's not much time spent with each character in these flashbacks, it neither helps to develop the character in and of itself, and it just hurts the film story-wise because why would you do this? And the story structure and editing doesn't help the fact of how cheap this whole movie looks. I'm sure this movie had a low budget, but God, all of that money is put on screen, and I don't mean that in a good way. The backgrounds are so obviously blue screen and green screen, and we're stuck in so few locations that all look vaguely the same. It's so obvious that they only had a select amount of sets to work with, and because the effects just look so dodgy and the editing is so janky, it just hurts the film by drawing attention to how, I'm sorry, obviously cheap it is. Part of me wonders if this would have been a better video game than a movie, because in all honesty, all of the great parts of a video game, especially one that focuses on fighting, is mainly in this movie. However, as great as it would have been as a video game, it is a movie first, and as a movie, it has some elements that are really good, but a lot that are just kind of bad. The action sequences are so well done from both a choreography and a cinematography perspective that it's pretty easy to find most of this movie fun because of it. However, the action is only half of this movie. The other half is filled with boring characters, a disjointed story, and a horribly low-budget feel to the film as a whole. For a film that I had no expectations for, I can honestly say that it did surprise me in a lot of ways. But in other ways, it did sort of live up to that zero amount of expectations I had going into it. I'm going to give The Princess a C. Well guys, thank you so much for watching, and let me know in the comments down below, who is your favorite kick-ass female character? Honestly, for me, there are a couple that I could have chosen, but gun to my head, I have to go with Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars. I grew up with Clone Wars since I was a little kid, and just seeing her progression through all of these years is just the best thing. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are the best. And don't forget to click subscribe and click the bell icon down below to stay up to date on all things movie, all things TV, all things nerd.